Shadows of abandonment. The rain fell in unforgiving sheets across Portland's skyline as Olivia Pierce huddled under the slim protection of a shop awning. 6 weeks ago, she'd been presenting architectural designs in a sleek downtown office. Now she clutched her thin jacket tighter, wondering how life could collapse so completely. "Ma'am, you can't stay here," a security guard said, not unkindly, but firmly. "Store's opening in 20 minutes. Olivia nodded, gathering her backpack containing everything she still owned. "I understand. I'm going." The betrayal had been as swift as it was complete. James Harrington, her fiancé and business partner of 5 years, had orchestrated it perfectly. While she'd been visiting her dying mother in Chicago, he'd removed her name from their architectural firm's documents, drained their joint accounts, and changed the locks on their apartment. By the time she returned, she found herself locked out of her home and her office, with no access to her designs or her reputation. The legal battle that followed was brief and brutal. James had covered his tracks meticulously, and her name had never been on the lease. Without money for a proper lawyer, she couldn't fight the documentation he'd fabricated showing she had willingly signed over her portion of the business. Olivia walked through the morning drizzle, her destination the women's shelter where she'd been staying when they had space. The nausea hit her suddenly, forcing her to lean against a brick wall. This was the 3rd morning this week. Deep down, she knew what it meant, though she'd been avoiding the truth. That afternoon, sitting on a public toilet with a pregnancy test in hand, Olivia's world shifted again. Positive. She was carrying James's child, a child he would never know existed if she had any say in the matter. "You okay in there?" called a shelter volunteer through the door. "Yes," Olivia replied, her voice steadier than she expected. "I'm okay." That night, curled on her temporary cot, Olivia made a decision. Portland held nothing for her now except painful memories and the ghost of dreams betrayed. She would leave, start over somewhere new, not just for herself anymore. Her hand moved protectively to her still flat stomach. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. "I promise." 3 days later, with the last of her emergency cash, Olivia boarded a bus to Seattle. She had exactly $237 to her name, a backpack of clothes, and her architectural portfolio, the only thing she'd managed to salvage from her former life. It wasn't much to start over with, but it was enough. As the bus pulled away from the station, Olivia didn't look back at the skyline she once helped design. Instead, she focused on the road ahead, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, she felt something beyond despair, a tiny spark of determination. "This isn't the end," she murmured to herself and the tiny life beginning within her. "This is just the beginning of a different story." Little did she know how true those words would prove to be, or that 3 years later, she would return to Portland not as a victim, but as a force to be reckoned with, and she wouldn't be coming alone. Building from ashes. 3 years transformed everything. Olivia Pierce, now professionally known as Vivian Palmer, stood at the window of her downtown Seattle office, watching her daughter chase bubbles with her nanny in the courtyard below. Ruby was a miracle, with bright eyes that sparkled with curiosity and dark curls that bounced when she laughed. At nearly 3, she was the perfect blend of Olivia's determination and creativity, with thankfully little resemblance to the man who had abandoned them both. "Miss Palmer?" Her assistant's voice pulled her attention away from the window. "The partners are ready for you in the conference room." Olivia nodded, straightening the lapels of her tailored suit. "Thank you, Diane." The journey from homeless and pregnant to founding partner of Palmer Design Associates hadn't been easy. It began with a shelter volunteer who noticed Olivia sketching building designs on napkins. The woman connected her with a small construction company looking for drafting help. Working through her pregnancy and after Ruby's birth, Olivia slowly rebuilt her reputation under her new identity. A daring design for a local community center caught the attention of investors, and within 2 years she had assembled a team of architects who believed in her vision. Now, entering the conference room, Olivia commanded respect with quiet confidence, a far cry from the woman who once slept on park benches. As I was explaining, her business partner Thomas was saying, Harrington Architects from Portland is looking to collaborate on the Westlake Tower project. They've specifically requested our firm after seeing the Cascade building. Olivia froze at the name, Harrington. James. They're flying in next week for preliminary discussions, Thomas continued, oblivious to her reaction. It could be our biggest project yet. Maintaining her composure, Olivia nodded. Send me their portfolio. I'd like to review their work before committing. That evening, after tucking Ruby into bed with stories of brave princesses who built their own castles, Olivia sat at her kitchen table reviewing Harrington Architects' recent projects. The designs were bold but lacked the soul that had once defined their shared vision. James had become commercially successful, but the artistry was gone. Her phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Harrington himself is coming to the meeting. Apparently he insists on meeting the mysterious Vivian Palmer personally. Olivia's heart raced. For 3 years, she had carefully maintained her anonymity, using Thomas as the public face of the company while she worked behind the scenes. Her rebranding had been partly for protection, fear that James might somehow interfere if he discovered her success, and partly from the scars of betrayal. But now, staring at Ruby's finger paintings on her refrigerator, Olivia felt something shift inside her. She was tired of hiding, tired of letting her past dictate her future, tired of allowing James to hold power over her life even from a distance. I'll handle the meeting personally, she texted back. Setting down her phone, Olivia walked to her home office and pulled out a sketch she had been working on secretly for months, a design for a building that would stand directly opposite Harrington Architects' Portland headquarters, a building that would either become her masterpiece or her statement of reckoning. It was time to step out of the shadows. James Harrington had taken everything from her once. But the woman returning to Portland wasn't the same one who had left broken and homeless 3 years ago. This time, she was bringing the truth with her, a truth with curious eyes and bouncing curls who deserved to know her father regardless of his past sins. Truth in the light. The Portland skyline welcomed Olivia back with indifferent familiarity as her car wound through downtown streets. Ruby sat in her car seat, chattering excitedly about the big buildings touching the clouds. Beside her, Thomas fidgeted with his tie. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" he asked for the 3rd time that morning. Olivia nodded, her eyes fixed on the road. "I've been running long enough." Harrington Architects occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming tower Olivia had helped design in what felt like another lifetime. As they entered the lobby, she felt a strange calm settle over her, the tranquility that comes with finally facing one's greatest fear. "Mommy, is this where we're meeting your friend?" Olivia asked, holding Olivia's hand tightly. "Yes, sweetheart. Someone I used to know a long time ago." The conference room doors opened precisely at 10. James Harrington entered with the confident stride of a man accustomed to controlling every room he walked into. He looked older. Success had added weight to his frame and silver to his temples. but his smile remained the same calculated charm that had once convinced Olivia to trust him with her heart and career. His smile faltered when he saw her. Olivia! The name escaped him like air from a punctured tire. Hello, James. Her voice remained steady, professional. I believe you were expecting Vivian Palmer. That would be me. The color drained from his face as he looked from her to Thomas, then to Ruby, who was studying him with innocent curiosity. Perhaps we should speak privately, James managed, his composure cracking. No, Olivia replied firmly. Anything you have to say can be said in front of my partners. All of them. She gently squeezed Ruby's hand. Recognition dawned in James's eyes as he looked at the child, the familiar shape of her eyes, the determined set of her small jaw. Is she... He couldn't finish the question. Yes. This is Ruby. Your daughter. The silence that followed held the weight of 3 years of absence, of betrayal and rebirth. I didn't know, he finally whispered. You didn't stay long enough to find out, Olivia replied, not with anger, but with the simple truth. You were too busy taking everything else. James sank into a chair, his carefully constructed world visibly realigning around this new reality. What do you want? Money? Shared custody? Olivia shook her head. I want the partnership you're offering on my terms. Equal billing on all projects and acknowledgement of my previous work with your firm. And I want you to know your daughter, not because you deserve it, but because she deserves to know where she comes from. You're not here for revenge. The question revealed more about him than he probably intended. Revenge would have been staying gone, Olivia said softly. I'm here because running from the past wasn't fair to Ruby, or to myself. Ruby, growing restless with the adult conversation, tugged at James's sleeve. Do you build big buildings too? Mommy builds the prettiest ones in the whole world. Something broke in James's expression, a wall crumbling to reveal something vulnerable beneath. I bet she does, he replied, his voice thick. She always had the greatest imagination. As the meeting continued with formal discussions of the partnership, Olivia watched James stealing glances at Ruby, seeing the wonder and regret battling in his eyes. The business details would be complex, the personal ones even more so. There would be difficult conversations ahead, legal arrangements, boundaries to establish. But as the Portland rain began to tap against the windows, the same rain that had once fallen on her when she had nothing, Olivia felt the final pieces of her healing click into place. She hadn't returned for forgiveness or revenge. She had returned to reclaim her story, to transform it from one of abandonment to one of strength. As they prepared to leave, James hesitated before asking, May I see her again? Olivia answered honestly, That's up to Ruby. But yes, if she wants to know you, I won't stand in the way. Ruby, who had been drawing on the conference room notepad, held up her creation. Look, I made a house for all of us. The crayon drawing showed 3 stick figures standing beside a simple house with a triangular roof and squared windows. It wasn't an architectural masterpiece, but to Olivia it represented something more valuable than any skyscraper, the unshakable foundation of truth and the promise that sometimes what breaks us can also rebuild us into something stronger than before.